WrestleStream.
WCW Monday Nitro.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gorilla Monsoon along with Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Hey, yo.
WrestleMania!
It's showtime, You're next.
Let's take a look at this very special North Korean celebration.
They say home is where the heart
I've been a part of WrestleMania, and I've been to Super Bowls. I've been to a lot of different big events. They pale in comparison to what I saw in Pyongyang. I knew that Vince McMahon was probably livid that there was a wrestling event that drew a bigger house.
Well,
Our first night, 170,000 people there. And I thought, oh my God, Antonio Inoki is a genius.
That was the greatest match that's ever happened in this business, ever.
Amazing. We're leaving WrestleMania in the dirt.
You mean
Toyota in trouble. Nakano sets up pile driver. Turnbuckle. Oh, man.
It's time for the main event. Mr. Ishikawa, let's get your opinion on this first ever meeting between Ric Flair and Antonio Inoki.
Why ask? There's no contest. We have Rikidozan, who is from Pyongyang, North Korea, who was the instructor of Antonio Inoki. Ric Flair.
More palm strikes come, and Kimura looks confused, turning to the referee as if to say, what the hell is happening here? While he does so, a blow to the head knocks him to one knee. Rikidozan jostles with the now defenseless man before delivering a vicious knee to the face. He lines him up again, winds back, and this time delivers a kick. They both connect flush, and Kimura is not getting
I first saw him in Honolulu, and I was mightily impressed with his intestinal fortitude that we commonly call guts today. I thought he was a fantastic athlete, and but he progressed and was a better wrestler later.
What was the effect of the karate chop?
Well, he had a very, very strong, he was a strong man, and he had a short chop about that long, and some fellas use a long chop, and it's not effective. He had a short chop that long, like Jack Dempsey, the fighter, boom, he knocked you out like that, and Rikidozan was like that.
How did you feel the audience of those days in Japan?
Well, he was like a god here, you know. We're not accustomed to that in the United States, and I was really elated to see that he was that popular. But I was not too popular at that time, I can tell you that, because I was wrestling Rikidozan.
And what do you feel about the death of Rikidozan and the future of the Japanese wrestling scene?
I thought it was a very tragic thing, and his sons and some other fine people in this area, Baba, all of them, they're doing a fine job of perpetuating wrestling in this country, and I really commend them for doing such a great job, and as I say again, perpetuating what Rikidozan started.
Was there anybody else like you before you? Who was your influences?
Well, Joe Namath, of course.
But I mean, was there anybody in pro wrestling?
No, Ali. I loved Ali, and of course I got to know him pretty well too.
Did you really?
Yeah, I traveled to North Korea with him, and he refereed a couple of matches I was in. And
wow.
Yeah, I never had a drink with him, but I sat in a bar with him in New Orleans, and brother. This is long after he's retired, and the women were still hanging on. I mean, I thought, this son of a gun, man. He's just like Elvis.
Oh,
you can imagine, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was such a bold
that way right there,
Look at that. Look at that.
Yeah.
Wow. He fought Antonio Inoki, that guy to the left. Remember that?
Yeah, I did too.
Did you really?
Yeah,
oh, that's right.
That was in North Korea.
Inoki was a fascinating character. What an interesting thing he did too when he fought Ali.
Mm-hmm.
Like Ali let him
legs.
Yeah, he let him leg kick him. Did you ever see that fight?
No.
Oh my God! It was like kind of a real fight because Ali was boxing and he's moving around, and Inoki got on his butt and butt scooted and started kicking his legs, where Ali couldn't punch him. You never saw that?
Oh wow!
Oh no. Dude, it fucked Ali's legs up really bad, dude. Because, like, Ali had never been leg kicked before, and he's facing Inoki. And look, Inoki's doing this thing where he's lying on his back.
Smart.
And I think, I don't know what they worked out, whether or not it was going to be a legit fight or whether Ali had any idea Inoki was going to kick his legs. I don't know what the agreement was. But it's very interesting to watch this because Ali's trying to, entertain, and he's also trying to punch him, but Inoki's like kicking his legs. So this is the third round. So he mostly just butt scooted and tried to get Ali to come to him. But he fucked his legs up where Ali was having a real problem with his legs after that for quite a long time.
Yeah, I bet. That looks like that would suck.
Look at he's going for leg locks and shit. This is so dangerous. If you're like a legit pro heavyweight boxer and you're letting this guy yank on your ACL, I don't know what the rules were. It's weird. Can you see if you can find any of the video of him kicking his legs? Because it was pretty nasty. When you had a match with him where'd you have your match with?
In North Korea.
In North Korea?
In Pyongyang.
In North Korea.
Yeah.
Wow.
Bad news.
What was that like?
I got matched with. I think probably the most scared I've ever been of anything in my life.
Really?
Forget the plane crash, everything else. That deal was so intimidating. They took our passports, right, and then they separated us. They put me in one hotel, Ollie in another, and the other talent that came along in another. And I knew right away I was in trouble. The guy says, he looked at my Rolex watch and goes, it would take me 1 year. I think we're making like $6 American a week. It's what these people were making, or the equivalent. I think he told me that. See, and he gave me, like, it would take 100 years to buy one of these. I wanted to say, brother, you can have this right now. Just get me on a plane home. I mean, it was that bad.
How did they talk you into doing that? Like, what was the premise earlier?
Oh, God, don't even get me going. A promoter in WCW. Yeah. They wanted Foreman first. Foreman said no. Then they wanted Hogan. Hogan said, I can't make that one, brother. And so they came to me and they said, nobody will ever see it. You'll be more famous than Lawrence Taylor. So I automatically went, yes. And then that was that. We never even talked. I'd never worked with Inoki before, so he just trusted me.
Well, that's cool that you guys had that kind of respect that you could do that.
Yeah.
Because you didn't speak Japanese, obviously.
No.
Does he speak any English?
Very little.
So did you know what North Korea was like, or we just?
I had no idea. I was good friends with Jesse Helms back then, Senator Helms in North Carolina. So I called. He said, "Don't go."
Wow.
But everybody I called that I knew in politics said, "Don't go." It's a volatile situation. It still is.
Yeah.
And they hate the Americans. They hate the Americans.
Why
they hate the Americans and they hate the Japanese.
Mm. Why'd they want you over there? Like, why did they?
It was like Goodwill Games.
Mm-hmm.
Inoki promoted it, trying to promote goodwill between. I don't know whether they're trying to get North and South Korea together or ease the tension between Japan and Korea. I don't know, North Korea. I don't know, but they clearly hate the Japanese and the Americans.
It's so weird that they had a Japanese and American over there.
I wish you could pull up that card show. They hold the cards up. It's like synchronized swimming, right? And they show a bomb. They show a rocket ship. 200,000 people was the crowd. 200,000 people in the stadium.
Whoa.
And they're mandatory attendance. It wasn't like they bought tickets. And it shows a rocket flying right over Japan and landing in America.
Oh,
They're right
whoa,
here.
this is
Yeah.
it. Look at this.
It's unbelievable. Watch this. If they have that.
Oh, they're all synchronized.
Yeah, it was the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
But they show this rocket taking off and flying over the Japan and blowing up America.
Whoa.
So you remember the name Mike Chinoy from CNN, right? Mike Chinoy, years ago, the troubleshooter.
Okay.
So he comes to me, he said they wanted me to say that, make a speech before they give me my passport that I thought North Korea could defeat USA hands down. And so I said I can't do that. And Chinoy said, well, I don't know if they'll let you out here without making that statement. I go, okay, here we go again. What am I going to think about? So anyway, I made it. I made it sound like they could be intimidating. In other words, I made it sound like we wouldn't back down to them, but there's a possibility that they could win or something like that.
Wow. So you had to come up with a crafted statement.
Yeah.
Did they have to prove it?
Yeah. Before they gave me my passport back.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And listen, when Ali and I got in that private jet, when we landed in Nagoya, instead of Tokyo, I got off the jet and kissed the ground. I said, never again. I was so glad to be back. Wow.
How long were you over there for?
We're supposed to be there for 4 days. We're there for 7. They kept us 3 more days.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, Ali and I are at the Marigold Hall, which is their version of the Capitol.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy is talking, and there's an interpreter, and he goes, talking about how they could destroy America and whatever. And Ali taps me in the leg. Keep in mind, he hasn't said a word on the trip yet. He goes, no wonder we hate these son of a bitches. I go, please don't start talking now. Just tell me later.
Yeah.
When we're alone. Don't bring that up now.
Yeah, no shit.
Let's eat this shit and get out of here.
What kind of food they serve you?
Oh, the food's good. I love Korean food. I still do Korean barbecue and stuff like that.
I saw Sonny Liston a few days ago, Jack.
Ain't he ugly? He's too ugly to be the world.
North Korea event that you were a part of, were you there on behalf of New Japan or WCW?
New Japan.
Okay. What was that experience like? Because I've heard it was really weird.
It was an experience of a lifetime. It was very weird to be on an airplane that was their airplane that was bugged. Having your room bugged and having microphones in your room 24 hours, having not 1, not 2, but 3 translators with you at all given point in times with everybody that was there. Taking your passport as soon as you come in. Flying into North Korea, flying over South Korea, saying all the tanks and the guns lined up pointing toward the left, and then the big goalie, and then the North tanks facing toward. And as you're flying over the south, you see them working in the fields with tractors and up-to-date equipment. And as you get over to the north, you see them still working the ox fields with the rice fields with oxes and the old plows and stuff like that. And it's like, okay. And looking for the airport where there's no airport. And as you get ready to land, like you're about ready to crash into the mountain, and it kind of swoops down, and airport was just kind of built into the mountain and stuff. You know, that and experience in itself was a trip. And then to land and before you even get off the plane, for them to ask you for your passport, you know, and realizing, okay, shit, I just gave my passport and I'm in a communist country. Ain't much you can do about it.
Is it true that they teach their people like different history than we hear here in Canada and the States about wars and stuff like that?
Being that I didn't really have an opportunity to interact with a whole lot of people as far as their beliefs and how they study and their history or anything like that. We kind of interacted at some events, and it was basically, you know, fake Providence hanging out at the same place, kind of enjoying something that the government had put together. Not sure if the people was forced to be there, if they was there on their own choice or will. You know, kind of really hard to say.
And I think those were like the 2 highest attended wrestling events in history, weren't they?
You know, Hogan has done a lot of things in his business. You know, Flair, a lot of wrestlers have done a lot of things. You know, that's only one thing that I can say that I've got on Hogan is this. I wrestled for 199,000 people, not one night, but 2 nights in a row. I don't think Hogan ever wrestled for that many people in one night, but that's about the only thing that I got on him.
Now, did the incident with Hawk happen on that tour?
As a matter of fact, it did. And it all regarded about pretty much everybody being stressed out, been out of gimmicks, been out of Roy's, been out of the stuff that they used to have and stuff like that. I think that had a lot of attention and stuff to do with it. And then me, you know, just Scorpio and the mouth that I have sometimes and shit, you know, I mean, had a lot to do with the situation too at the time and stuff, you know, I mean, Ric Flair standing in the door doing the Ric Flair thing, and Hawk looking at Ric Flair, and Ric Flair looking around like he might be looking for somebody, and Hawk says, you know, I think Ric Flair's looking for somebody. Maybe he's looking for me to go ride in the car with him again. And me being as smart as I be, I said, F that pussy, let him ride by himself. And I guess he didn't hear the F part or the pussy part or whatever it was. And he asked me what I said. And I said it again. And next thing you know, shit, fight was on.
Were you a little worried getting in a skirmish like that in North Korea with your passport seized?
I thought I was going to be thrown in goddamn jail and be locked over there, and everybody was going to be back over there in Japan, and my ass was still going to be in North Korea, stuck in the damn jail, and ain't done a damn thing I can do. Thank God it was on the bus, not in the streets, and it wasn't something that was more serious where, one of us, was in the process of having to lose a limb or something like that and had to go to the hospital, because then it probably would have been some kind of charges or something, brought upon me or something like that would have happened, so.
It was more of just a quick thing, and when it was over, it was over.
No, not necessarily. It kind of lingered on for a few hours and a few days and stuff like that. And by the time we got back to Japan, it pretty much was all squashed and settled by that time and stuff. But I was also forewarned by Black Cat Nicholson, rest in peace, that also told me at the given point in time, hey, look, bro, because I was planning on doing some real devious type stuff, that, no man probably should be thinking of doing it in his right mind. And like he said, if you do that over here, bro, you're pretty much on your own. You can, go ahead and kiss the States goodbye and your life. If this happens in Japan, well, and that's a different story. I can probably get you out. I know enough people, I can probably get you home. You know what I mean? It won't be the safest way, but I can get you home. So from there, by the time we got back, it was all over with, said and done.
And is it true the food there, it's very hard to come by meat, like good quality meat?
Good quality meat was very hard to come by. I was starting to get real leery. Started out with a lot of pigeons around the place, and when you're seeing a net around a building and a lot of pigeons, and when you first arrive and every day you got these henchins and little pigeon looking like type birds, for lunch and dinner, it kind of makes you a little leery when you start seeing the pigeons around the hotel starting to disappear a little bit and the crowd getting a little thinner.
But I think the biggest thing we had over there was when we wrestled North Korea, Pyongyang. 170,000 people 3 nights in a row, that was amazing. People, it was so far, it was in the Olympic Stadium, the people were about that big, it was so far up there. 170,000 people, that's a lot of people. So, especially 3 nights in a row, so that's probably the thing that sticks out the most. Because the place was communist, and we were being watched the whole time. And one guy made a phone call to his wife and said, man, this place sucks. As soon as he said that, the phone went dead, and he lost his phone privilege for the rest of the tour. Then we'd leave the hotel because, that it was so, everything was so all propaganda, so they only had so many different shows on TV, So we got sick of the place, so we would want to go out and walk, and people would be following us the whole time, so. But it was pretty cool. Muhammad Ali was there with us. It was a pretty big event.
Did you get a chance to talk to Muhammad Ali at all? It's probably gone.
Yeah, he had the onset of the of the disease, but he could he was moving slow. But man, once we got to the steps, because we went to visit the king and where his tomb was, it was like he ran up all those stairs. It was pretty amazing. He was moving pretty good.
You had a really bad experience during WCW's North Korea tour. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I did have a bad experience. All right. Get a little hoarse here. But North Korea was an eye-opening, brother. I had no idea what I was getting. None. When Masa Saito and Hattori walked up to me in the locker room and said, Scott, after this, we go to North Korea. I said, okay. I knew that it was a communist country. I didn't, I thought I'd be going to Russia or something. And man, I was wrong. But so anyways, the episode that I had that was so, even, today, I should have been dead. They should, it just shouldn't have made it through this. I just got married. When I'm on the road, I stay in touch with my wife. I tried to call home for 3 days from North Korea. To make a phone call there was impossible. Excuse me. So anyways, I'd have to go down to the basement to the operator and tell her the number, pay her, and then I'd run up. The elevators didn't work in this huge hotel in North Korea, which is probably the only hotel in North Korea. And I had to run 7 flights of stairs. And I could hear the phone ringing. And by the time I got to my phone, when I picked it up, dead. So I tried to go home for 3 days. Couldn't get home through. And all these Americans from the WCWs with us and everything. So finally, they let me call home. When I got to my room, I grabbed the phone and I got to my wife. I got to talk to her. She was so mad at me. She just started chewing my ass out. And like I was abusing our marriage. And I was out all night with the boys. I says, Tammy, you do not understand what kind of shithole I'm in here. Boom, just like that, the phone goes blank. And I'm going, she hung up on me. $17 a minute. I've been running up and down these stairs for 3 days. I'm telling you, I tried 30 times. It was just, I was so pissed off. So I'm sitting there and I'm on my end of my bed. I'm going, what the F? And I finally get through. And all of a sudden I get a pound and knock on my door. Boom, boom, boom. And when I answer the door, I'm ready to take this son of a bitch out on the other end because I'm pissed. Here's 4 guards with this dude, and they got guns. And they told me, they says, come with us. And I'm going, what the hell's going on here? And they took me out of the room. Not by force, but they persuaded me. So the elevators worked. They just wouldn't let us use them. Down the elevator we went, right past that little operator room where I was trying to make these phone calls for all that time. And we went down this like a freaking tunnel. And they put me in a room. And I'm like, now I'm scared to death. And all of a sudden the door bangs open. And this guy comes in with these guards, and they're all armed, military people, and he looks at me, and I mean, if looks could kill, I was dead. And I'm just sitting there going, what have I gotten myself into here? I mean, nobody knows I'm down here. Nobody knows where I'm at. And I'm thinking, this is it, I'm dead. And if it wouldn't have been, I still believe this, if Muhammad Ali wasn't on that tour with us in Inoki, I'd be gone. Especially after years later, when that Warmbier college student took a poster off the wall in a hotel room, which were on our walls in the hotel room, and they did what they did to that kid, I'd have been executed in public. It was, and I mean, I sat there and I seen what they did to that poor guy. I mean, they sent him back to America with all of his teeth pulled out of his mouth and just set him in his mouth and just placed him back where they're supposed to be. And he was brain dead. They beat him, they tortured him to death. And I mean, to get out of there with I was, frightened for my life, and I'm trying not to be frightened too often.
played a huge role in the big Collision in Korea events. This is kind of everyone talks about the Collision in Korea events when they're talking about the history of WCW. So I'm wondering if you could go into the whole detail of how they were set up and what it was like there and the various issues that happened with some of the wrestlers and other talent.
Yeah, there's we can go. There's 4 hours. Yeah, there's a 4 hours movie on that deal. First of all, Antonio Inoki had reached out to Brad Riggins and Eric Bischoff because to work by the way, Antonio Inoki was a member of a Diet. He was like a senator over there in Japan at the time, and pretty big politician. He reached out to Eric to get in contact with Muhammad Ali, and this was certainly before I was on front of camera talent. So Eric made that happen. I think in Denver we had matter of fact I have a photograph here somewhere. I had a picture with Muhammad Ali and Antonio Inoki, and Muhammad Ali is one of my heroes. With all the stuff he went through, so I got to meet him. Eric put this deal together, and throughout that, Antonio Inoki was working on this peace festival and having this event in North Korea. Now, let me tell you how that kind of comes about with Japanese pro wrestling, and you got to kind of go back in history. Made the one of the most famous wrestler in Japan in professional wrestling history is Rikidozan, who was Korean-born, who changed his name in Japanese and became one of the father of professional wrestling in Japan. So here's Rikidozan, Giant Baba, Antonio Inoki, and these people come underneath that, the family tree per se, or pro wrestling tree in Japan. And so with Rikidozan being born in North Korea, and Antonio Inoki being professional wrestler / member of a Diet, was trying to create this peace festival to bring professional wrestling to North Korea. Mind you, this is way before, right? Rodman and, but another gentleman that I got to know through wrestling. So as this Muhammad Ali meeting happens and Antonio Inoki mentions, we're doing this peace festival, maybe you can join us to North Korea. And so originally it was New Japan Pro Wrestling guys going to North Korea for this peace festival. And because some of the talent, and because we had a talent exchange program, people who was working for New Japan at the time, the Steiners, and Rory Hawk, and those guys was going to go to that show. I got invited, and Eric Bischoff and I got invited. Akira Hokuto was there, and Eric says, "Well, we're going to. Do you want to go to North Korea?" Yeah, I never been there, and knowing that it's kind of forbidden place to go, certainly as a U.S. citizen and certainly a Japanese citizen. And I got a few calls from the government official telling me that he says, "Hey, we don't want you to go. If you go, we can't guarantee your safety." But in '86, I was in South Africa when there was still apartheid, and they told me the same thing back then. So, yeah, we go. So we whether it was young and foolish, well, I wasn't that young, but it was an experience that we certainly not going to get another chance. So we went, and it was quite the trip, and I can go on and on about that experience. We got on a plane, and I'll do a short version of this. So we got on a plane in Nagoya, and it was a North Korean plane, and it was one of those DC-9, looked like a fixed wing plane. You know what I'm talking about? And I was fortunate enough to sit up front, which is considered, I'm sure it was a first class, but mind you, we're talking about North Korean plane. And I remember flight took a while, but I remember the flight attendant came by and said something that we couldn't really understand. And it was really, you got to understand the contrast. We're flying first class on Japan Airline on, 747 from United States to Japan. And then we get on this DC-10, And I remember planes start to rub up and we're going to take off. And I guess all of us used to put on the seatbelts. Some of the seat didn't have a seatbelt. So it was kind of, that's one of the things I remember.
Now, we interviewed Scorpio, and he told us that he got into a fight with Hawk.
I was there too.
Can you tell us your version about that?
Well, we're kind of cooped up in the country, right? First of all, everybody's, especially the American boys, all freaking out because we're flying in and we see the skyscrapers. And, they're actually flying us around the Capitol, so we all see it, right? A lot of things was, propaganda. They want us to see a lot of things that, they want us to see what they want to show us. And there was famine going on in North Korea at the time. So we're flying to the city, and there's like an 8-lane highway coming out of the city, right? And we're flying, and we see like clay, like not a lot of green, and we see the highway in the middle of the day, but we don't see any cars. So I'm going, wow, So that's kind of first impression. We fly in. First thing they do is they take our passport. So you can imagine all the boys are coming up to me because I was kind of Japanese, their liaison for a foreign trip. And, they're all going like, where's, I need my passport. And I remember Ric Flair just freaking out, and basically, my answer was, yeah, they took my passport too. But even if you had your passport, where are you going? We got communist China to the north. We have DMZ to the south. There's no way out of here unless they let us out. So, like what they told us, and New Japan official told us, before we left, you got to be at your best behavior. And apparently Scott Norton forgot about that memo that he got for that one. Because I'll tell you that incident in a minute here. But so getting in to answer your question about Scorpio and and Hawk, Hawk, a little hothead anyways. We talked about him and Randy, and so somehow he was, he didn't mince any words, and I kind of got an idea because I don't know for sure. I don't want to mention it, but why they had a heat between them. but anyway, both being athletes and both being pretty buffed and they're pretty tough guys, and word got a little heated, and did they get into it in a bus? There was a porta part, and I do remember that, but not knowing what all the detail was. But I remember Eric telling those guys is, listen, we are in North Korea. Only way we can get out of here is that they let us out. So to give you an idea about Scott Norton wanted to call home. I obviously wanted to call his wife, actually. But and the only way you can make a phone call out of North Korea, and they told us, right? And they told us that everything you do once we land, somebody's watching you. They're listening to you. So be at your best behavior, And mind you, they're giving us the best that they have to offer. But their best they have to offer is, you know, nothing like you used to in Japan or in certainly in the United States, you know. And food, I you know, foods are, you know, at best, and they're giving us their best. But, you know, we're not getting, there's a famine going on. There's, you know, we're not getting, you know, prime ribs here, you know. And
didn't Scott Steiner throw a piece of food across the room or something? At one
no,
point?
what happened was they had this big Korean barbecue thing going on in a park. This beautiful park, and you know, the food that they was cooking was a stringy, you know, something that resembled meat, you know, looked like a little gristle thing, and I, you know, and I don't know if it was Scott. I think it was Scott. I'm not sure, but you know, and we're outdoors, and there's people walking around smelling the barbecue. You know, whether it's a gristle or what, it still smells good, right? Especially if you haven't had a meat for probably a couple of years. And I think he kind of tossed one of the meat because he didn't like it, and I think it was his brother that said, "Hey, that's probably not very good. These people haven't had a food." I think kind of smartened him up on that. And what happened to Scott Norton was that he wanted to call home. So in order for you to make a phone call, you get on and they call the operator, and the operator calls China. You give them the number in China, because that's the only people they had a connection with, and they will call you back. They will ring you back, and, you know, it's like going back in time. So Scott gets on the phone in his hotel room and started, you know, forgot that there was people listening. And I think he was talking to his dad, or maybe it was his wife, Tammy. But anyway, complaining about the food and passport, and, you know, what a shitty place this, you know, North Korea was. And from what Scott told me was phone went dead. And a few minutes later, there was a knock on the door. And we all were assigned a translator. But they weren't really translators, right? They were like Secret Service people, you know. And I think there was a couple guys behind him. I think they were armed, and they kind of asked him, "So why do you dislike our country so much?" Or something to that word. Scott can tell you when you interview him. But I think his room was never cleaned after that. I did let him know that they didn't like what he said. And, you know, knowing that what happened to some of the people in North Korea after we've been there, you know, the kid that stole the poster and all that stuff, who ended up dying, I think Scott was lucky to get home.
And I read in Ric Flair's book that he seemed to indicate that a lot of the fans were almost forced to come watch.
Well, I don't, you know, I don't know. And all I know is that there was 2 television channels in our hotel room. One was all propaganda of Kim Sung-il, which was Kim Jong-un's dad at the time. Propaganda about how North Korea has defeated, you know, Japanese in World War II, and United States and Korean conflict. And I mean, their history is a little different than ours, obviously. And then you had another channel that was nothing but professional wrestling.
Oh, really?
Let me tell you how big the whole thing was. The money, when we exchanged our money, had Antonio Inoki and professional wrestler on it. They printed money just for us, for that whole country had to use our money. And I asked why that was, and they didn't really give me a straight answer from the North Korean representative. But if you really think about it, it was so that they can control our dollar. So when we exchanged it, we didn't exchange it with their current currency, but with this new currency just made for us, so they can make sure that the dollar that we gave to that country make sure it ended up in the government's hand.
I see.
So it was, that's how big the whole thing was. I mean, if you saw the video of Collision in Korea, you saw that in the stadium where we performed, there was picture of these flip cards of these missile flying. It's like a pixel, right? Each one of these little kid had a pixel of television, if you can imagine, on your television. Each pixel with these little kids flipping these cards, so the missile would fly off and destroyed, building in America and that kind of thing, And if you see the video, you'll see it. They told me they practiced for 6 months just for our event. So you can imagine how big this thing was, right? And to answer your question about what it said in Ric Flair's book, I know they didn't pay for the ticket, likely. Do they have to be there? They were probably invited to be there. And where the country works is they're probably better show up kind of thing. So yeah, Rick is probably right to a certain degree. But, you got to understand, you if you're North Korean, you're just trying to survive, right? And the government plays a big part of your life. And, you're actually going to get a holiday to go watch wrestling for 2 days. Would you want to be working, or would you want to be able to go sit and watch something that you don't get opportunity to see? So, I there was some what Ric Flair said is true, but I'm sure there was, these guys. They probably didn't sell that event as entertainment. It was more of competition between great evil American versus Asian guys who represented from New Japan who Korean people I'm sure identify with. So Antonio Inoki, who had a great relationship with North Korean government, physically competing against what represents all the things wrong with the United States. Ric Flair and his gown and his entrance and blonde hair and grand disc of Ric Flair. I'm sure it was a great, show. And of course, Antonio Inoki goes over on that match, and Ric Flair was graceful in his defeat, and it was a great happy ending, certainly for the audience. It was a great payoff, and so
was it originally supposed to be Hogan, and Hogan didn't want to go, so they sent Flair?
Yeah, I guess so, but certainly there was nothing lost by Ric Flair being there, and I don't know if Rick wanted to be there.
According to his book,
probably not, right?
He also mentioned that Muhammad Ali was getting a little testy towards the end there, and he actually started talking normally at a few points that he was worried about getting.
Well, I'll tell you funny, and I'll show you a picture a little bit later. So we went to visit, they take us to these, propaganda visits, right? Cameras. And by the way, you have this great camera and lighting here. Eric Bischoff and I were together most of the time, and we had this lady Secret Service / translator that was assigned to us, and we would go to these various events. They have the Gate of Triumph in France, in Paris. They have their version of that there, but it's the carving and monuments on the wall is North Korean citizen defeating the evil American and Japanese, happen to be two of their greatest enemies, and they would ask us with that in the background. They would stick a mic in my face, but their camera is guys literally doing this, and the lights that we have here are nothing like these lights. They're actually light bulb with the battery pack on a guy, because technology hasn't gotten there. Mind you, this is many years ago as well. So the guy's battery packs are like a Batman's utility packs. And one camera guy actually rolling the film. And that was the technology.
That's in 96 or so.
Right, yeah. But we're still in 1954 technology, right? And they would ask us questions, they would kind of bait us, right? And the question to me was, since they knew I was from Japanese born, so they would ask me like, so Sonny, don't you think that Japanese government should pay for the atrocity that they have committed against our country during World War II? And knowing that I was going to get asked a question like that, so Eric and I were smart enough to go, and my standard answer was, I'm born, 54, so I was not involved in, I don't have any experience of that, and I live in Iowa. That was my standard answer. Certainly, you don't want to, say things that certainly offend them, and I wanted to get home, so we were smart enough for that. And they would ask Eric. I remember one point they would ask Eric a question like, "United States government has dropped one bomb for each citizen of North Korea." And don't you think, and it was the same question, don't you think Americans should repay for the damage done to the American or the Korean citizen? And Eric had his answer, war is terrible, I can't remember what he exactly said, but, he was smart enough to, kind of fade the heat, as we say in the business. And so it was like that. But getting back to so they would take us to I think we went to visit Rikidozan's home where he was born.
He was actually Korean.
Yeah. So we went to visit, and old home, kind of like a historical thing. And as I'm walking back, I feel this in the back of my head. I go, what the hell? I turn around. It's Muhammad Ali jabbing me in the back of my head. So I, champ, you want some of this? Then actually there's a picture. I have it here somewhere of me and him squaring off. The Eric Bischoff snapped off a couple of pictures of me and Ali snapping, getting ready to go. I see, so me talking some of these. And Ali was so great that when he wanted to talk, when he wanted to be cool, he was all that. He was real sharp. And I think he was sharp all the time. But when he didn't want to talk to you, he was doing that. So, he was working us the whole time, I think.
He's worked to his benefit, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just finally on that, do you think everything's going to work out in the end with that whole North Korea situation? Or do you think it's something that we really have to be careful about?
Well, I don't want to get political, but I don't quite understand why certain country can have the bomb and other country can't. And obviously, yeah, it's a scary thing. Japan is the only country that ever had that bomb dropped. So I'm very sensitive to the destruction of a nuclear weapon. But, if they already have it, how do you force somebody to take it down? You know what I mean? How do you do that? And especially when you got a history of people like Gaddafi, who agreed to get rid of their big baseball bat of nuclear weapon. Where he ended up, that's probably not a good example. So I'm glad I'm not a politician. That's a hard answer. But I know one thing though. If you're a big guy like you, pick on a little guy like me, and if I only got one bullet, and that's my only bullet, and I have no other way to retaliate, I think that's a scary thought,
And of course, Dennis Rodman might be able to mediate that situation because I guess he's friends with both Trump and the North Korean leader.
Absolutely. I think Eric and Dennis Rodman should get together and work out a coalition since they have, they have a first hand. I tell you how great Eric was. The translator / Secret Service lady. So all these people, I'm sure there's some kind of a ranking that they get, right? And they had this button, a little button that they all wear on their lapel, and that was picture of Kim Sung-il, and I hope Eric still has it. Eric had created a relationship the time we were there with our translator that she awarded him with that pin.
Okay.
And I was flabbergasted, right? I mean, however their education system is, America is a great evil, and Japanese is probably number 2 on that list, and Eric has convinced this lady while they were interviewing us and, our little time that we had, she gifted him that pin. And only people, she told us, to have that pin are, special citizen of North Korea.
I actually heard Eric talk, I think it was the podcast where he had you on either last year or the year before, where he was out for a run and they were so afraid of Americans that they were literally...
Wait, yeah, imagine, and you have to imagine this, right? So Mike Chinoy of CNN was there. He was one of the only first foreign reporter that got into North Korea. And we were in our hotel lobby because that's, we couldn't really go anywhere. So that's where we always hang out. And Deborah Wong of ABC News came over to our table and says, man, professional wrestling, really? She says to us, she goes, all the time I've been trying to get into North Korea. And they have refused my, request. But I get to come here and cover professional wrestling. She couldn't believe that she got in the country just to cover us. And that's how tight the whole thing was. And I think one of the first day, Eric was at, and he is avid runner, and he didn't think anything of it. I think he only got to do it once because they told us he couldn't do it anymore. He put on his shorts and his t-shirt and went out for morning run. And we're downtown Pyongyang, in the city. And what I found out later on and during a week was that these people, it doesn't matter if you worked in a factory, whatever you did, they'd literally march. I mean, like you come out of your house, another guy come out of their house, and they march to work. I mean, like together, right? So by the time we got down the street, there'd be like, dozen of people, and they all, their suit might not have a hole in the elbow, but they're all wearing, and they might have been doing it for us. I don't know, but they were, very uniform, and they were, very formal. And imagine you're going to work, and you basically been propaganda and all the news that the evil, Westerners, certainly the number one enemy being American, and you're walking probably all your life, and you see this guy running towards you. Eric said people parted like he was Moses.